Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Be me, it's 2017. I messed up in college, and due to life circumstances, I found myself forced to live with my Uncle W on his farm. My Uncle W is a strange man, not just because, at almost 60 years old, he never leaves his farm, not only because he lives like a crazy hermit, but also because he has a strange habit of locking all the doors of his house. We agreed that I would help him on his farm in exchange for accommodation and food. It wasn't the best offer, but it's better than being a NEET. Things go by normally, or at least as normal as they can be. Although there's something strange about my Uncle W. It seems like all that time alone drove him crazy. One night, I went to store some things in the barn. When I entered, I saw everything was in disorder, which was odd because we almost never went in there. I assumed it was my uncle, so I didn't pay much attention. I wanted to ask my uncle if he made such a mess, but he didn't respond. I fed the livestock. Here we provide supplements to enhance their development. A cow followed me the entire way, even continuing to do so after I served all the food. What the hell? I returned to the house, assuming it was an aggressive cow. Days later, I went to the town to buy some things. Everything felt normal, except that my uncle asked me not to take too long. A black dog arrived at the farm. I can't exactly say its breed, but I know it was quite large. It seemed like a mix of a German shepherd with another breed, full of mange and ticks. We adopted it and improvised a treatment for its ticks. The dog slept at the entrance of the house. For some reason, we heard it barking during certain periods of time. During the night, I woke up suddenly feeling a breath, and when I looked at the window, I seemed to see a shadow staring at me. The messed up thing is that I sleep in the second-floor room of the house. My uncle seems skeptical, but in his eyes, I see that he seems very afraid. The dog continues barking at night until I don't hear it bark anymore. It's gone. The dog didn't appear until the next day. It was limping. Some dead chickens in the shed. Something is wrong here. The dog doesn't leave my side. Even when I'm locked in my room, it refuses to stay away from where I am. Friend or foe? I went to feed the livestock. The dog stayed close to me all the time, even barking at some cows that responded with moos. A couple of regular days. Thanks to the presence of the dog, I don't feel so alone. My uncle seems calm. I hope it was all just paranoia. The dog disappeared, although it returned in the afternoon to receive its food ration. It had blood, but it wasn't injured. Something is really messed up here. I can't sleep. I feel something in my gut telling me that something is messed up here. The dog barked at something during the night, then scratched the door to be let in. I called my parents. So much farm crap was driving me crazy, too. They told me I could go in a couple of days while they sorted out some things related to my older sister's move. The penultimate night there, I don't know. I don't remember well. I saw a cow dancing during the night. Yes, literally dancing, standing on its two hind legs, listening to music only it could hear. Damn, it was dancing. Literally, it was dancing. I can't take it anymore. My uncle offered to take me to the bus stop to go home. At least this shit is over. Country life is not for me.
A real country kid would have gone out and boot-scooted with the cow. Get on back to the big smoke, city slicker.
The creepiest thing that ever happened to my family. The year was 1990, but she must have died many decades prior. I'm talking about a twisted tale that has now been passed down through 3 generations of children in my family. In my childhood, this story startled me to death, for reasons that I'll explain shortly. The story is an experience that my uncle had as a teenager. In the middle of my small hometown, there stands a wooded, secluded hillside, once topped with 2 ominous homes, a log cabin and a cottage comprised of concrete. My grandparents, that hard-working couple, bought the property in the late 1980s and moved the family into the log cabin, while the other home remained vacant. My parents were living in Texas at the time, and one of my 2 uncles lived in Georgia. The other uncle, then 18 years old, lived at home with my grandparents. It was winter, and my uncle was sleeping on the living room couch near the front of the house, which had views of the makeshift driveway shared between the two houses. He awoke on that dreadful morning and looked outside. What he saw shook him to his core. Standing in 6 inches of snow, she was someone he had never met. She wasn't one of the kids from the neighborhood at the bottom of the hill. No, she was far from it. Wearing a Victorian-era dress, the little girl was clearly out of place, and she stared directly at him as he peeped out the window, as if she had been waiting for him to wake up. No expression, no emotion, a blank stare right into his soul. My grandmother had already gone to work despite the heavy snowfall, and my grandfather was asleep in their bedroom. My uncle, confused and creeped out, went back to his father to let him know about their guest, and he was instructed to go out and ask her if she needed help. My uncle walked back to the front of the house and put on his snow boots, exiting the side door and losing sight of the girl. When he arrived at the driveway, she was gone. He looked around for her but wasn't able to find her, though he did find a series of footprints leading directly to the front door of the vacant house. He followed the footsteps to the front door of that house and looked inside, but found nothing except for cobwebs and shadows. Bewildered and bracing himself for the worst, my uncle returned to his family's house and went back to bed, eventually forgetting about the girl as days turned into weeks and weeks turned into years. My parents, having returned from my father's military service, moved into the concrete cottage shortly after. That's the house that I was brought home to from the hospital, and ever since my childhood, I knew that something was strange about the house and hillside. A product of homeschooling, my wacky sleep schedule often kept me up into the wee hours of the night, and every night I felt cold chills while I sat on the computer that sat directly in front of the front door that the little girl allegedly entered. Other strange things happened. Some examples include my mother hearing the laughter of children while my brothers and I were absent, my mother seeing a half-human, half-dog creature in the backyard, and me capturing an apparition resembling a young girl in a photo I took of the front door. I saw many shadow figures as a child, and so did my brothers. Rumors had always circulated about various possible explanations of these paranormal encounters. My uncle often told of a plane crash that happened on the back of the hillside, though my research never led me to any solid evidence. Others told of ancient Native American burial grounds, along with possible satanic rituals happening on the hill that was once a park. In all my years of life, I've never found any possible explanation for what happened on that hill. The decaying walls of the homes held many secrets, but their whispers never revealed the truth to me. We eventually moved out of the house and to the other side of town, and so did my grandparents. They retained ownership of the property, and the family as a whole let nature take back the homes. We would visit occasionally, and for a few years the vines and ivy grew rapidly to cover the houses. Mysteriously, both houses burned down within the span of a couple of weeks. We're not sure if there was arson involved, or if the fires were the result of some drug-producing squatters. The remnants of the homes still remain, and last year my family organized a picnic at the top of the hill. I was happy to see what was left of my childhood home, but I couldn't shake the eerie feeling that I was being watched for the entire time I was there. It makes me wonder if it was the little ghost girl's spirit watching, or something far more sinister. For a short time she and I were connected, but I never found out who she was or what her purpose there was. I doubt that I ever will, but I know her presence remains, forever trapped in an enclave of forgotten memories and unanswered questions.
Be me, 17 years old. Started hanging out with an older dude named Dino, mainly because he would take me to a lot of parties and buy me beer. Stay out late a lot of nights and do random shit. One night we're sitting in car bored with a couple other people. Dino mentions a haunted graveyard he's been to before. It's called Goodleburg Cemetery. Screw it, let's go. Starts driving there. On the way there, he starts explaining to us the backstory about the place. Says it's named after the infamous Dr. Goodleburg, whose real name was Albert Speaker. He did illegal abortions in the early 1800s on women. On a number of occasions, the surgeries were botched, and the pregnant women would be killed in the process of the abortion. Seeking to avoid the authorities' interference with his practices, the doctor would remove the bodies of these young women from his house under the cover of night. He would take them to the pond at the back of Goodleburg Cemetery, where he would dump their bodies. Some bad shit happened at this place. On the way there, while he's telling us about the horrific events that took place, I start to feel uneasy. Not sure I want to go anymore, but I have no choice as we are already on the way. The ride there was a half-hour long, but I swear it felt like we teleported there. It felt like 5 minutes of being in the car, and we suddenly arrived down the dark dead-end road and at the cemetery. There's only one house on the road and no lights were on. Not sure if anyone even lives there. Get out the car with Dino and 2 other friends. It's dark and late, probably 2 in the morning. Warm summer night, but here it was freezing cold and a thick fog covered the place. Complete silence and no wind. The hairs on the back of my neck and arms stand up. From the road, we walk up a small set of stairs and enter the cemetery, a small one with maybe 10 old broken gravestones and some trees. Dino says to follow him back through the cemetery to the pond. I'm shivering because of how cold it is, and a very uncomfortable, eerie feeling sets in. We follow Dino back to the pond, which is maybe 100 feet tucked away in the back of this plot of land. No other roads, just the one we took to get here. Walking towards the pond, and Dino starts telling me that the doctor roped himself on a tall oak tree in the back, and people have seen him hanging from the limb. We are all approaching the pond now. I stop, see something across it, eyes looking back at me, bright red glowing eyes. My friend says, "Do you see that?" I don't move a muscle, just completely paralyzed. Another set of glowing eyes appear. We all stopped and stared at the eyes. "What are those, wolves?" My friend mutters quietly. 5 or 6 sets of bright red eyes staring back at us. We all try to look away but can't, like we're in some sort of trance and nobody can break out of it. I try walking closer, but it's like there was a force stopping me from going any further. Not a physical force, but like a wall of energy. They are still there, watching us. Nobody had flashlights on, so these eyes weren't reflecting lights like an animal's normally would. These aren't green or yellow either. They are glowing, bright red. Suddenly we see headlights behind the pond. It looks like a car pulling up right next to us. There's no road back there, only land. We assume it's the cops and all start running back to the car. Running away, the headlights get closer. They shine directly on us. Then they disappear. Nothing. It's dark again, and we don't hear any vehicles. It's dead silent again. What the actual hell? "Where did the headlights go?" one of us asks. "There's no roads over there. There's no one here but us," Dino says. Confused as all hell, but we aren't panicking. Just don't understand. We are still getting out of here. Start hearing what sounds like a drunk girl crying in the distance. Oh no, .jpg. Whatever it is, it's wailing and screaming. I see a hazy white figure moving in the fog. See the figure moving side to side and quickly getting closer. Start running again. Running so hard and fast I can hear my heart beating in my ears. My chest hurts, and I almost fall to my knees completely winded. I almost threw up. Look behind me one last time, and it's disappeared. We all get to the car. I'm about to open the door, but I stop, and I look at the car because something catches my eye. The window is fogged up. It's covered in tiny handprints. Like little baby hands were pressed all over the window. Get in the car and drive off. I've never been so scared in my life. We don't really talk much about what we experienced in the car. I suppose we were all in shock. Besides Dino. He starts saying, "I told you it wasn't a joke. I told you we'd see some shit." He then goes on to say that 5 years ago, he was leaving the cemetery one night with some friends, and he lost control while driving and went off into a ravine. He crashed, and one of his friends in the car died. Why would he bring us here? Why the hell would he want to come back here? Look over at a friend named Diana in the back seat with me. She is holding a tiny glass bear she found on one of the graves. "You shouldn't have taken that," I say. A couple weeks later, Diana goes absolutely schizo. Friend tells me she's just not the same anymore after that night. She tells my friend she's hearing babies crying randomly. She tells my friend that she wants to go back to Goodleburg. He said, "Hell no, you're crazy." I look at her profile on Facebook. She has a picture of a Goodleburg cemetery as her cover photo. Whatever spirit she disrupted when she took that glass bear must have followed her. I haven't seen her since. I haven't talked to Dino in years. The dude is just a bad person in general and brings bad energy wherever he goes.
Be 13 or 14 years old boy. Wake up on a perfectly ordinary summer morning. Immediately upon awakening, seemingly out of thin air, filled with unnaturally strong admiration and love for eagles, as if by supernatural force. Not in the tacky, nationalistic sense of them as a symbol, but for what they actually are. Mind flooded with images and scenes of them as they exist in nature. They very quickly become the only thing I think about, and I become unhealthily obsessed. Keep in mind, before this day, they weren't part of my life at all as far as I know. Draw and paint them, buy books, documentaries about them, buy statues, idols, even buy life-size cardboard cutouts of one. Unintentionally, ended up building an eagle shrine in my bedroom. Mom is struggling with drug addiction at the time and hardly ever around. I'm a very lonely child. Find self-soothing mechanism of imaging myself as a tiny newborn eagle, being kept warm and safe under my mother, who is tightly covering me in a nest. This is literally how I get myself to sleep every night for years. Real human mom is a gardener, and though we were poor, has a few rich clients. That summer, she found me a summer job pulling weeds and other stuff for a very rich couple she works for. And, I mean, they are really wealthy. The property we worked at was on several acres right on the waterfront, and they owned several other houses, one mansion in a neighboring large city. The man is old money. We don't actually have any idea what they do other than collect expensive art, but they are nice. There is an eagle's nest on their property. I buy an expensive pair of binoculars to watch them become even more obsessed with them. It's obvious to everyone that I'm spending very little time actually working, too preoccupied with watching the birds. No one stops or reprimands me. If anything, they actually seem to encourage my interest and talk to me about birds. The woman gives me a book about eagles, writes something to me on the inside cover, I can't remember what. End up burning the book as well as a lot of my other eagle stuff at a much later date when I was feeling bad and ashamed about my life. I wish I still had it. Get to be older teenager to now in my mid-20s. Self-soothing mechanism moves away from wanting to be protected and safe under a large maternal figure to actually wanting to be that maternal eagle figure myself. I actually want to do things like build a nest, have baby birds that I'd take care of just like I used to imagine being taken care of when I was a kid. I'm so disturbed by all of this I stopped taking care of myself, pretty much stopped brushing my teeth, which I'm now paying for dearly and have to go to a dentist. Start drinking really heavily, start using drugs. Maternal bird feelings do not go away. Trying to ignore them makes them stronger. Psychological methods for stopping intrusive thoughts do not work. These things are thoroughly a part of me, no matter how much I wish they weren't. Have no normal ambitions people have, like building a career, becoming an artist or musician, get married, build a house, etc. I want to be a bird. Weigh options and actually consider harrowing at lowest point, but decide I could not do that to my family, and especially not my mother, who got better and stopped using drugs because she loves me. What do you think is wrong with me? I've made a few threads about this here over the years, but never reached a conclusion I could be satisfied with myself. Some people have said I may be possessed by a spirit. Some people have suggested an eagle spirit attached to me and took care of me when my mother could not. I still do not know what to think about this, but it's been going on for about a decade and it has never even faded in intensity even slightly, so I'm fairly certain it's never going to go away.
Why don't you start working with birds?
I've thought about it before, but life circumstances don't really allow for that currently. If you want to do that and not have it be just you volunteering, you'll have to go back to school. And I need to be working full-time right now, so I can't. That it went from not being a part of my life at all to being the most important thing in my life literally in an instant really says to me that this might have been some sort of walk-in, or me being brought under the influence of something. And like I said, I'm still the same as when it started. Before too many more years, I will have been like this for most of my life.
Your mother was on drugs when she had you. You have attachment issues the same way a narcissistic person is said to be affected by apathetic parents. They have grown up with you, so now you have associative issues with this core developmental fixation. I suggest enjoying eagles. Your sense of shame and admiration are both mechanisms by which you rationalize your soothing. You know all this, so why are you making me tell you?
That all would make sense and be clear cause and effect of me being neglected if eagles were a part of my life before. But they weren't. There was no obvious root cause. I sought them out, only after I was filled with the sudden strong need to, from nothing.
I've encountered spirits which came to me as birds, both as birds in a flock and as other birds, all in dreams. This is somewhat of a shamanic sorcery thing, but I think basically the soul has some calling and connection to nature, and so the spirits of the land appear to us in these forms, and sometimes we take on those forms ourselves. I was in a dream and I visited someone who pressed the sides of my face and formed my eyes into those of a falcon, and then I took the form of a falcon and leapt into the sky and flew away from danger that I was facing. It was a powerful form of dreaming, to imagine vision through sight of a bird, and to drift across the surface of the world from the viewpoint of the sky from one vision to the next. I don't know if you have any Native American ancestors or blood connections to this land, but as for your mother, she was raised in a harsher generational mindset and probably couldn't cope with whatever occurred to her as she grew up and came into being here.
This is actually really beautiful. You can consider it as a psychological function as other anons have, or a spiritual process or intervention, with almost the same core truth behind either explanation. The psychological and the spiritual process are the same. You found or were given from your subconscious, or through a connection through your subconscious to a guide, an image, a form, which embodied the essence of the things you were not getting at that time, the eagle. Maternal holding, and I'm guessing as you don't mention a father, there was no father around. From the father we learn boundaries and the appropriate use of power, and the presence of your own power. Man, what a representation of those things in an eagle. So you may never know whether it was just your subconscious which decided that it needed to produce an archetype for you as a resource, or if it was given by something other. I would enjoy the connection you have to eagles. It's yours. It's not unhealthy. It's a representation of your unconscious desire to be whole and healed. At the same time, you sound very aware of your own process and you may realize that you don't need them. Peter Gabriel sang about a vision of an eagle which changed his life in Salisbury Hill. Who knows where these things come from?
Another anon's reply to me really made me think about this in a different way. In the beginning, when I was a kid, none of my feelings towards this were negative whatsoever. It was only when I started contrasting it with the dogma of the exoteric religions when I got older that I started hating myself because of it, and hating that I couldn't get rid of it. Perhaps this anon is right, and the only reason it feels dark is because its origin and purpose are unknown to me. But I feel like I should remember how happy it made me initially, and like it does definitely have a purpose. Otherwise, I wouldn't be living it. And you're right, I had no father around.
Be me a decade ago, 15 years old. I grew up in a town in Montana, population like 3,000 max. Always kinda eerie but peaceful. Live in the only house shitty and cheap enough for parents to afford. Mom has various mental illnesses, never really treated because poor and hadn't been a major issue. Collects dolls but isn't weird about it. Gets them from garage sales, antique stores, wherever. The whole basement is filled with shelves of dolls. Creepy.jpg. Mom only ever really goes down there to add a doll to the collection. Kinda disorganized, the uglier ones are turned to face the wall. One winter night, breaker trips for the kitchen and dining room. Ma sends me down to flip the switch. Take the flashlight, I need a new bulb for the basement lamp. It's around 9 p.m. The house is dark and silent except for the wind and creaky floor. Click on the stair light. Flickers like a horror movie. Feeling watched while I walk down with my dumb little flashlight. Reach the bottom. Open the door. Heart stops. Every single doll is turned to face forward, all heads aimed at the doorway. Nope, no thank you. Scream. Bolt upstairs, nearly trip over my own feet. Tell Ma! She looks confused and goes down to the basement with me. Round 2. Ma looks at the dolls, shakes her head. I ask her if she did this recently because I never go in the basement. Fairly prudish Mom just says, nope, this is all fucked up. Never heard her say that before. Flip breaker, walk upstairs while Ma stands in the doorway. Few minutes later, Ma closes the door, walks up the stairs shaking her head. Are you sure you didn't do that when you were manic? No, things have been really good for me lately. Silence after that. About a week later, Ma gets a storage unit and moves all the dolls out. Never really hear about the dolls again. Asked her about it recently and she sold all the dolls soon after that.
The imaginary friend in dark times. Had an imaginary fox friend since I was 6 or 7. Nice guy who acted like a noble knight. Because of this, I still can't watch most cartoons about foxes because they act like manipulative pricks there. Every time my parents, especially my father, saw me talking to him, they started scolding me. None of the claims had anything to do with religion or psychiatry. My friend asked me to explain to him what he was guilty of, but I didn't know what the matter was, so we agreed that these were some features of family education. 12 or 13 years old. My father makes 2 attempts to leave the family and leaves on the 2nd. His current wife already had 2 children at the time of the meeting, which shocked me then during a period of discord in the family. There was a dream where I was sad and my fox friend hugged me. Maybe there were a few more dreams since then, but I don't remember them. A dark period of my life begins, which it seems to me continues to this day. 14 or 15 years old. My father suddenly became a communist and now he is a libertarian. Criticizes religion in every possible way, especially Christian. Tried to make me an atheist. In that period I was on the verge of a believer and an agnostic. Now I'm an agnostic trying to be a believer again. Had a very strange dream. Lie under the light of a chandelier in my bedroom. A dark figure is walking towards me from the door. Call it as my father. Tired asked it to leave me alone. It comes up, bends over and bites my neck. Wake up screaming and terrified. Someone in 2017, suddenly remembering my imaginary friend, sadly think it would be nice to go back in this time. Suddenly, the archetype of a fox is gradually becoming popular in society. Remember how everyone loved cats? Forget it. They put foxes everywhere now. The more time passes, the more annoying this archetype appears, often used by some bad, stupid, or just plain nasty people. Some when in 2019 the forums I read are getting more and more threads about people wanting to deal with kitsunes. It all looks like someone wants to make fun of my buddy. I feel something is wrong here. What is happening? Is my father possessed by some evil spirit? Who are all these fox-posting people? And who is my imaginary friend, actually? I would guess that he is also some kind of evil spirit. But then I was quite a believing boy, and he never once said something against my or any other faith. He never talked about religion.
Sounds like you need to deal with your dad first and foremost.
Okay, let's drop the imaginary friend part. Is there a demon in him or not?
Worse, he was a kami, so it means he has no soul. Also, many guardian angels poses other stuff to not bother. I don't think your buddy was a guardian angel, but if he was really that autonomous from your mind, then might as well. Go to church and ask for him yourself. It's free. Also, do not actually speak with the pastor. The man might appear later in a dream to say hi so you can recognize his voice. Do not overthink it. Many kids experience the same, but forget about it later. You might have not because it was one of the few good things you remember. Be me, 7 or 9 years old at the time, in the living room watching TV. Here's someone going up the stairs behind me. Check to see who it was. No one is there. Footsteps continue up the stairs, then continue around the rest of the 2nd floor. Confused. Tells no one about it because I thought if I did, no one would believe me. Still hears footsteps all the time, only on the stairs and upstairs. Upstairs is always hot for some reason. AC doesn't seem to be broken. My dad even checked it several times because of this. It's just really hot up there. Me and my parents barely go up there because of it. Alone upstairs one night, walking around talking to myself, hears someone running up the stairs. Heart stops for a second, checks to see who it is. No one is there. Swears I heard someone running up. No one is there. Always seeing black figures in the corner of my eye. No one is ever there though. Feel a presence behind me or watching me at all times, only when I'm upstairs alone. I would always run down the stairs scared as shit for no reason. Something in the back of my head yelled at me, "Run, run, fucking run, you aren't safe." I kept doing this. My parents found it really strange, didn't think anything of it. We had a dog, a small, crusty white doodle. He would never go up the stairs willingly, always preferred being downstairs and would always bark at the stairs, scared shitless of being left home alone. We'd always come home to a huge mess, things knocked over that he couldn't reach. One time, I found him on the kitchen counter. The dog went blind a few years into living there, perfectly healthy before. One day he just slowly started going blind. Once we moved, the dog never acted up again, never barked without clear reason, and never messed up the house when left home alone. I feel like our dog going blind was a sign of a demonic presence. I'm not religious, but something was clearly wrong with the house. To this day, I don't know what it was, although I have some ideas. I am curious though. I've been trying to find out what it could have been. My mom was and still is a very spiritual person. She's convinced it was some sort of demon feeding off our negative energy, but it seemingly came with the house itself. She's the one who blames the house on making our dog blind, which to some extent I kind of believe, although it could have been a number of things. The condition the house was in, and the fact that doodles aren't exactly the healthiest of dogs, although it is strange how random it was. I've researched vengeful spirits since we moved. I'm curious about what it truly was that was in the house and why it targeted the second floor and stairs specifically, trying to get some answers. Perhaps someone can shed light with similar stories of their own.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check the Odyssey and Rumble pages for separate archives of previous broadcasts.